evening, everyone. Buenas noches. On behalf of the Celebrate Dyslexia Board of Directors, it is my honor to welcome you tonight to Destination Literacy, a live podcast taping in partnership with Texas Public Radio. Tonight, we come together to celebrate the incredible progress our community has made in recognizing, supporting, and uplifting individuals with dyslexia, and to continue pushing toward a future where every learner is seen, understood, and empowered. I'd also like to acknowledge our generous sponsors. Sponsors, your support has made tonight possible. You will see our sponsors listed on the slides behind me. Your investment sponsors ensures that conversations like these reach classrooms, families, and communities across our state. And since it's a podcast, technically globally. And last but certainly not least, to my fellow Celebrate Dyslexia board members, please stand to be recognized. Thank you for your dedication and belief in this mission. And to all of you here tonight, thank you for being a part of this moment to a more literate and inclusive Texas. Now, it is my honor, true honor, and privilege to bring Jasmine Dean to the stage. Jasmine is the founder and CEO of Celebrate Dyslexia, a nonprofit committing to ensuring that every person with dyslexia is celebrated, understood, and supported. She is the superintendent of Celebrate Dyslexia Schools, now in its second year of existence. And she has become a statewide leader in policy and advocating bringing education, Medicare, and workforce initiatives to San Antonio. Please join me in welcoming Jasmine Dean to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I just have to tell you that this is a little bit like Christmas for me, to have you all in the same room. If I could put you around my dining room table in my house, I would just take you all home. So many of you know my story, so I won't repeat it today, but I want to remind everybody where it started. It started around the dining room table, where my husband and I tried to help our 3 sons with their homework. And I'm so fortunate today that they're here with me. I get to speak with all of you regularly, but you don't all get to see my husband and my children. So I would really like to introduce them to you right now. Jeff, please stand up. Jonah, Jordan, and Joshua. They're all probably rolling their eyes at me right now, but that's okay. To say that I am proud of each of you is an understatement. Most in this room have heard your stories in great detail. As a family, we are still in the trench, and that's really important for everyone to remember. We still have meetings and conference room table conversations that we have to get ready for. Boys, you are resilient, determined, hardworking, and have found your passions and your purpose. I want you to look around the room really carefully. This is something I wish I would have done last year and I forgot, so I get the opportunity to do it this time. We are not alone. And I want you to remember that as you each embark on your own lives. We have a senior this year, so we're not guaranteed he'll be with us next year. I know I won't always have the opportunity to have you at these events regularly, but your willingness to share our experience with the community has resulted in a coalition that will change the experience for others for years to come. So I just wanted you all to know that they are as much a part of the Celebrate Dyslexia movement as me, who you get to see all the time. So thank you for being here. Tonight matters so much because in this room, in this very moment, exists the solution to every barrier families like mine experience in their journey with dyslexia. As I started to find solutions in our community, I met with many of you, most of you, and if we haven't, don't worry, I'll be calling. In this room, we have professors, teachers, cell phones that ring, school administrators, doctors, lawyers, parents, workforce developers, elected officials, insurance providers, juvenile justice officials, funders, and others in the ecosystem that support a student through the education and their well-being. This coalition of stakeholders that have gathered tonight is setting the precedent for the rest of the state and the country to show collectively we can do this well for all through reframing education and medicine for those with dyslexia. While we need to focus on the macro of why this is so important in all of our silos that we're building bridges across, I just want you to know that if we zoom right back into the micro, it will impact where my story began, every dining room table, and parents who are trying to work with their students, and students who are trying their best to show how smart they are in the classroom. This work is only beginning. This coalition's action item today is leaving here with a deeper commitment to continuing to do the necessary work in your sphere of influence to advocate, collaborate, and fund the work making the struggle with dyslexia as foreign to the next generation as the iron lung is to us today. As you listen to the panel that we have for you today, reflect and decide exactly how you will be a part of this change. Let's continue pressing forward to bring healing and solutions to every dining room table through literacy by making sure everyone has a free, appropriate public education and the accessibility so desperately needed for an accurate, equitable medical diagnosis. It is now my honor to welcome our keynote speaker, State Representative John Lujan. State Representative John Lujan currently represents Texas House District 118 in Bexar County and is now pursuing Texas's 35th Congressional District. A former firefighter and active community leader, he has championed education and workforce readiness at the Texas legislature, including pivotal efforts for dyslexia. Thank you. Representative Lujan filed House Bill 5002 or 5002, which later passed in SB 1, mandating a TEA study for dyslexia in students in juvenile probation. Thank you for helping me welcome Representative Lujan.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm really, really excited, and this is a great evening. It's an honor to be here tonight to talk about something that's close to my heart, dyslexia. And when I say dyslexia, I'm also talking about dyslexia awareness, dyslexia education, and even opportunities that we can have. My name is John Lujan. I'm state representative for House District 118 here in Bexar County. Last year, I had the opportunity to go visit Celebrate Dyslexia. And I'll be honest, I was blown away. And I was blown away because prior to going there, I had already built up and I was learning and I was excited about learning more and more about dyslexia from what I had learned previously. And I met with Jasmine Dean and when I met her and I saw her passion that she had for this, I heard her story, her mission, her vision. I got super excited. It opened my eyes to see how powerful early recognition of dyslexia is. I can't tell you that in a stronger way. Very, very powerful. I'm gonna stick with me here. I'm gonna back up. I told you I met Jasmine in the school last year. Before that, in 2022, some dumb reason I decided to run for state rep and I won. And so there I am in 2023. I was in session, and we were in session from January to May, and we went through session and everything. And I was blessed. I'm a freshman there at the Capitol, and I was given a vice chairmanship for juvenile justice. And I thought that was so cool. And I think I got it because I do a lot of juvenile work in my private life. Right? I'm a retired firefighter, but I work a lot in the church. I work with juveniles. I do a lot of stuff with foster care and adoptions and things like that. I have 3 adoptive boys. So I'm in that space. So I figured that's why they did it. So after session ended, I went and just took a tour because I was just fascinated. We have 5 prisons in Texas for juveniles. I don't know if y'all knew that. And they're all over Texas, and I went to every single one of them. And I think I'm the only legislator to ever do that. I know a couple of them, I'm the only legislator to walk through them. But I would walk through them, and I would meet with the administrators. I would meet with the JCOs, the juvenile correction officers, and then I would also meet with the students. I said, bring me some of the kids, 15, 20 kids. And the very first one I went to, they said, I don't know if you can do that, Rep, and that's, if it's legal, and that. And once I got one, then all of them could do it. But I said, I'm a state rep, I want this. So anyway, but I didn't have an agenda. But I was just looking, what can I find? What can we make a difference? How do we stop a pipeline for our juvenile justice system into prison? What do we do, and what does it look like? You know, and I'm so glad to see Joe Mata here. She's phenomenal lady. These are people that I get all my information from and stuff. And so I said, how do we make a different legislative? God put this before me. How do I be honorable to God for the things that are in front of me? That to me is real important. But there was some things that I walked away. I walked away with a lot of stuff, had a lot of notes. But the 3 big shocking things to me was the first thing that I learned that almost 90% of the kids in the prisons, in those facilities, are illiterate. 90%. I was blown away. I said, how is that? How does that happen? Second thing I found out was they said that the average reading grade level, 3rd grade. These are all high school kids that are in there, 3rd grade. And then I was talking to a staff member. She said, well, I said, what causes that? How come, why is it that bad? What are you seeing? And she goes, well, most of them are dyslexic, over half. And then she says, and I think almost the next half just are undiagnosed dyslexia. And boom, hit my head. I said, man, that's it. I came back to San Antonio, and I was on a kick, man. I would preach dyslexia everywhere. I think I found an answer. We got to do something. And I don't know what to do, right? Because I'm ignorant of that. I'm a retired fireman, a business guy. And I'm thinking, man, what do I do? And I'm just preaching it everywhere I go. And then I was preaching it at I think it was at Frontier School or something. And I was talking to Superintendent Segura over there. And he tells me, man, if you're really interested in this stuff, you should meet Jasmine Dean. And so, man, right away, give me her number. He gives me her number. I called her. Hey, I want to meet with you. She said, I don't have time for you. I don't want to meet with you. No, she didn't say that. I'm just kidding. You know Jasmine, you know that's not true. In fact, she came almost hugging me like, man, you know what? She's looking for people to be on there with her. She's looking for champions. She's looking for workers. She's looking for people to pick up the mantle and fight the fight with her. And so when I met her, I was just blown away. And that's when I started thinking, man, this is big. This is bigger than what I think. When she showed me her school, and I went to her school and we talked, I was getting educated on all these things, it really hit me, and it was sad because I was thinking, a lot of those kids don't even belong there. Because if you grow up and you don't know you're dyslexic, you just think you're dumb. Your own perception, I'm a failure, I'm a loser. And then people telling you that. And then evidence showing it because you can't read in front of everybody. And so what's a kid gonna do? Especially if you're raised by grandparents or single parents, what do you do? That's a tough one. And so when I started, thinking about that, and the session was starting, I got reelected. And so then last session, we did pass that legislation. And I said, I want to make sure that every kid that goes in the juvenile justice system, they need to be tested for dyslexia. And we need to fund that. And I want it done right because I wanted to gather data. Because how can you respond to something if you don't have the proper data? So if we have this, we're going to see how many kids are dyslexic in there, and it's overwhelming. And then we can start tracing it back. How do we treat it and stop this from happening? Right? So we passed that, and I was excited about that, and we got that all going. And I didn't want the study. I wanted it to be more than just, okay, we have these numbers. I wanted it to be big. I wanted it to paint that real picture so that we could see things. And then I wanted to find out and I wanted everybody to know why the kids are falling behind. Not because of lack of potential, but because they've been overlooked. And I thought if we could find that, then we can put some money together and start funding the right things. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the real impact is when we identify dyslexia early. We don't just improve their reading scores, we change futures and lives. And I seriously mean that. It's important that we get it at the early stage. Why this matters, I'm going to tell you right now. People with dyslexia are family members. They're neighbors, they're community members. They're all around. Even, and I don't want to put Representative Mark LaHood on the spot. Mark is a representative. He's down the hall from my office. We're good friends. I love his heart. I started talking this dyslexia stuff. Hits home to him. His child's dyslexic. He's here today. It hits and everybody. There's a representative in the House that came to me and says, "Man, I want to work with you a little bit on your dyslexia stuff." And normally he doesn't work with me that much. And so I thought, why do you want to? I know what's the deal? And he said he was dyslexic. And so it's not something that's Democrat or Republican. This is something that should unite all of us for a common purpose. And when we do that, we can make changes. And when we help these kids, we're not just helping the kids, we're helping our workforce, our economy, and our communities. So the question is, what do we do next? What's next to do? The research is clear, and I think it's clear because I got it from Jasmine Dean. 90% of children, when she says to me, you know, I'm like a big cheerleader. Sometimes I think I preach more about dyslexia than she does when I'm on my trips and I'm talking all this stuff. And I don't know if that's possible, but I crack up because I'm like a cheerleader guy. She's the guru, right? But I'm the cheerleader. But 90% of the children with reading difficulties, you know, can get back to grade level if they're caught early. 90%, that's a high margin. When we have all those kids in that juvenile justice facilities, they don't have to be there if we would have treated them early. Amen? I feel like I'm preaching a little bit. I like that. But after the first grade, after it goes down to 70. By the time they're 9 years old, it's 75%. Then it gets less and less and less. And it's harder as they get older. So why isn't our investment, our strength, our energy into this early intervention? And I'm going to tell you how we do this. And I like what she's doing, because this is not acceptable to me. This should not be acceptable to Texas. This should not be acceptable to our community. What we need to do is bridge a gap between education and medicine. Dyslexia isn't an academic issue. It's a developmental and neurological one. And that means our systems, they have to work together. And when we can get it out of just being that educational piece, but truly bring that medical piece into it, I think, man, we make tremendous strides at that point. And I'm just kind of preaching stuff that you preach already, right? Amen. Thank you, Jasmine. I like that. Through Celebrate Dyslexia's medical initiative, we're creating a roadmap. And let me tell you what that roadmap consists of. Building stronger collaboration between healthcare providers and schools to ensure early identification and intervention. Streamlining access to diagnostic services so no family faces months or years of delay getting treatment. Because every time it goes further, it's just harder, right? So we got to stop that. And then building sustainable support system that treat dyslexia as both an educational and a medical concern. When we identify dyslexia early, we don't just improve reading scores, we change futures. We keep kids in school, we keep them out of the justice system. We give them hope. And I think that's super important. Celebrate Dyslexia continues to inspire me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it shows what's possible when passion meets purpose. And when you have Jasmine up here talking, you can see that passion meeting that purpose. And we share this with everybody because I know there's a lot of like-minded people in here. And we get one shot at this, right? I mean, not one shot. We get more shots. But you get one moment to be here in this time right now. And we're all going to walk out different. Some are going to be happy. Some are going to be sad. Some are going to take some of this and act upon it. Some might not do anything with it. But I want to challenge you. Listen, learn, get involved, and then how can you help? I'm not going to be at the state legislature next year. I'm not going to be running again for state representative. I'm running on the congressional side, on the federal side. But you got to pound and get after your state representatives, Mark LaHood, Desi Martinez is running. He's going to win. Bug them. Go to their offices. Keep bugging them. I'm not going to be there. She can't bug me about at the Capitol. Bug them. Because when people get up there and good people start talking and putting it in their minds and hearts, they're human beings just like us. When everybody's talking about it, they're going to carry that mantle, right? And that's why I invited them here, because I want people to pick up that passion. Together, we can make Texas the leader in identifying, supporting, and celebrating dyslexia, and in doing so, build a stronger, more compassionate state for generations to come. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and God bless the great state of Texas. Thank you, guys. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lujan. His work has laid the foundation for tonight's panel discussion, where we will dive deeper into what policy means into practice. So, our panelists are going to come up, and I will introduce them all as they come up. Everybody come up. Joining us are leaders across education, justice, and dyslexia. Tonight, they share how policy shifts are reshaping practice and how dyslexia connects to every part of our city's future. So I would love to just tell you briefly who all of these amazing people are. We will start with Chief Jill Mata. She's the Chief Juvenile Probation Officer for Bexar County. An experienced juvenile justice professional, Jill brings decades of leadership across public safety, law, and policy. A graduate of Trinity University and St. Mary's University School of Law, she has built her career around strengthening collaborative, cross-organizational relationships to better serve youth and families. Under her leadership, Bexar County has become a model for innovative, research-driven approaches to juvenile justice, emphasizing rehabilitation and community partnerships. Jill has been an incredible partner to celebrate dyslexia, and together we have made huge strides in serving justice-involved youth. Please welcome Jill Mata. Next to her, we have the incredible Mary Yaris. She is a certified academic language therapist and certified structured language dyslexia specialist. And we have lots of acronyms in the dyslexia world, and she has all the initials. Mary's journey in education began after her own daughter's diagnosis of dyslexia, and since 2001, she has worked with students from age 5 to 80. She recently retired, less than 2 weeks ago, as regional coordinator at Region 4 Education Service Center in Houston, where she provided International Dyslexia Association accredited certification programs and professional development for teachers across the state. She's also a past president of the Houston branch of the International Dyslexia Association. Please welcome Mary Yaris. Next to Mary is Mario Torres, Dean of the College of Education and Human Development at UTSA, and holder of the President's Distinguished Professorship in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. He comes to San Antonio after an 18-year career at Texas A&M, where he held multiple leadership roles and built a national reputation in school law, policy, and organizational inclusion. Dr. Torres has published extensively on students' rights, co-authored and edited multiple books in the field, and has overseen more than $17 million in funded research. Please welcome Dr. Mario Torres. Last but certainly not least, in the red glasses, we have Dr. Audrey Young. She is an accomplished educator, leader, and advocate dedicated to advancing equitable access and excellence in public education. She currently serves as a member of the Texas State Board of Education, where she brings 32 years of classroom, campus, and district level experience to her work shaping the future for learning in Texas. Throughout her career, Dr. Young has championed policies and practices that supported students, empowered teachers, strengthened communities, including, everybody, all of my Celts in the room, the Dyslexia Handbook. Known for her collaborative leadership style and deep commitment to student success, she has been recognized across the state for her impact in education and public service. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Audrey Young. So we're going to start the first question, diving right into talking about the medical code. So, Mary, this question is for you. Why is medical code recognition so critical? And how do you see it changing how dyslexia is diagnosed and treated?
So I have to start this journey with my daughter, and she was a happy little kid, very bright, great vocabulary. She's in kindergarten, and she loves her teachers, she loves her classmates, she loves her school. Towards the end of kindergarten, she starts coming home every day having meltdowns. This was really atypical of her, so I'm going to the school saying, and I really am going to get to the medical code, I swear. But so I'm going to the school and I'm saying, "What's going on? Is something happening?" They're like, "No, she's great. You know, it's obviously it's the mom, right? Because she's fine at school." So then we start first grade, and I'm seeing the same pattern. But in addition to that, I'm seeing a lot of nausea. It starts out nausea in the morning as we're getting ready for school, and she doesn't want to get out of bed. She doesn't feel good. And I thought, oh, okay, she doesn't want to go to school. She just wants to sleep in, be at home, right? And then it starts growing into she's going to a birthday party. She doesn't feel good. We're trying to go to a toy store. She gets sick. We have to leave. Going to a movie, going to a sleepover with friends. So it's starting to, I'm thinking, okay, this is more than just there's something physically going on here. At the same time, I was finding out that from a speech pathologist who was working with her that she was also struggling in some areas, could be dyslexia. So she wasn't using the D word yet. So I go to the pediatrician because isn't that where you start when you are having these issues with your child? See, I told you I'd come back to it. So we go to the pediatrician and I said, "This is what's going on. She's got a lot of nausea." He says, "Okay, well, I think she needs to see a GI." And I said, "Well, you also need to know that I'm getting ready to have her tested for learning differences and for ADHD." And he said, "Oh, that's separate." And I said, "Well, she's struggling with reading." He says, "I don't know anything about reading," which he's a pediatrician. I wouldn't expect him to know anything about reading. But it was, let's go treat these physical issues. This is separate. So we go to the gastroenterologist. They start doing increasingly more invasive tests on my child, giving her medications that are having zero impact. In the meantime, I get her tested, find out she has dyslexia. This is a 6-year-old. So I sit her down and I say, "Look, honey, I want to let you know we've been going through this testing, and this is what we found out. You have something called dyslexia. That's why you're struggling with reading. And we know what to do about that. So we're going to have somebody work with you." My little girl looks at me and says, "Oh, thank God I'm not stupid." And I'm like, where did that come from? Because I said, "Well, I've always told you you're very smart." And she said, "You love me. You're my mother." So I said, "Well, your teacher says the same thing." She said, "She loves me too." So she was very secure with having lots of love around her, but had given herself a very negative label at 6 years old. And we talk about identifying these kids later. She was 6 years old and already had this feeling about herself that she was less than. But the most remarkable thing, as we start working with the dyslexia, guess what happened? All the stomach issues went away. So I wrote a long letter to the gastroenterologist and the pediatrician saying, "You need to treat the whole child, because dyslexia doesn't exist in this little box all by itself. There are comorbidities that go along with that. There's anxiety, which leads to upset stomachs. So we can't just look at the child as dyslexia and not having anything to do with their physical well-being. And if we could identify these kids earlier, or at least identify which kids might be at risk, we know it's genetic. We know there's going to be a test where they can do a cheek swab at some point where we can see which kids are at risk. We can help them earlier before all of this negativity develops, before the physical issues develop. And it's a cost savings too. I mean, we can look at this from any angle, but it's important work, and the medical model is important.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, which is a story that we hear over and over and over, right? Okay, so the next question can be shared with Dr. Torres and Dr. Young. What reforms are most urgent in education preparation and professional development?
Thanks. Like I said, for me to start. Well, we definitely are looking at ensuring that the college-based programs, which he'll be able to answer to, include dyslexia training, right? And so we want to ensure that the teachers that are coming through, or those who are in alt cert programs, which, if any of you know, 55% of our current teaching staff are alt certified. That means they didn't go into this to become teachers. They went into the workforce as something else and decided to go into education. And so they don't have any background at all. And so one of the major elements that we need to ensure is happening at the college level is that our teachers are learning about dyslexia therapy, dyslexia identification, and making sure that our teachers are being trained to identify and to treat this. So you want to tell a little bit more about what y'all are doing?
Absolutely. We're in an interesting period in higher education. And I think it really starts with imagining the possibilities of really providing the resources and support for all children to be able to thrive academically. And, you know, for me, it's astonishingly clear that if early screening happens, what the implications are for that child living a prosperous life. You know, I'm often reminded when in conversations like these, of something, I think he was a former senator from Minnesota, Hubert Humphrey, always talked about the yardstick for institutional integrity is how we care for our most vulnerable, those who are the sick, those who are the ill, and our elderly populations. And I really see an incredible opportunity for colleges, social services, hospitals, our medical researchers, the opportunities for collaboration in a meaningful way. And I must tell you that at my own institution, we're stressing new things. We're stressing social responsibility, how it's important for students to experience what careers are like before they finish school. And it may involve some soft skills or service learning, but that we feel that's critical. The other thing we're doing in regards to what I think, Jasmine, you said earlier, you referred to silos that that still exist in higher education, where you have disciplines, you have individuals that do research that's critical to understanding and learning more about treatments and advances in the area of dyslexia. And we're building those kind of opportunities. We've had what are called cluster hires in recent years, where we are hiring teams of individuals who come from, let's say, brain health, they come from science, they come from education, they come from sociology, and the team of researchers work together to address these lasting problems. And one example of that, and I believe the same can happen in the area of dyslexia. We have one researcher participating in a study with colleagues at UT Health around aphasia. And it's not just simply understanding the symptoms and treatments, but also understanding the collateral effects, right? What it means for families. And so she's involved with creating a support group for those families who are in some way impacted directly or indirectly from children who are dealing, I know we've called it disorder, and in speaking with you, sir, earlier, dyslexia is really a way of seeing life differently, and seeing opportunities. And just to get to the teacher prep question real quick, because I've talked about where we are in higher education. I think it's very promising. But also working within the institution, but also across. And I'm very proud. I see Dalia Contreras over there, that she's been able to catalyze a lot of that work, where we are partnering with agencies outside of the college to address lasting issues. Just a couple more things, and I'll pass it on. I do want to say that Texas has made advances in addressing dyslexia, but I will say philosophically, there are still those divides. You have people who feel that dyslexia, that reading, everybody knows how to teach reading. And that's, I think, an assumption. And it really requires a lot of expertise to know how to deal with different learners when it comes with reading. But the problem is resources, because typically in college education, you're only seeing credit hours diminish. So for some of you in here, you might remember taking a degree, getting your bachelor's degree and doing it in 128 hours. Now they're reducing that to 120. And I was talking to somebody earlier, there's even talks about reducing it to a 90-hour bachelor's degree in an effort to try to get students into the workforce faster. But that has implications for teachers being prepared to spot dyslexia when it's happening, to be able to treat it and refer for interventions. And, I feel that this is a promising time for colleges and universities to partner. And I know I have a fellow dean from TAMU San Antonio who's here with us. This is not a UTSA issue. It's really collectively, and I see Jeff over there with Region 20, how we use the complementary resources to really advance dyslexia and raise public awareness.
I was just going to share that the legislation has done wonders since the 86th, 87th, 88th, and 89th now in funding different elements for dyslexia. The state of Texas started reading academies again for all teachers to take. And then also TEA, one of the requests that I had when I had the opportunity to rewrite the Dyslexia Handbook, the 2022 version, which aligned it with IDEA and placed dyslexia under special education, was that I asked TEA to develop the dyslexia, the 6 modules that teachers take. It's online and you can take it for free. And so it's accessible to everyone. You don't have to leave your home. The ESC service centers are fantastic to go to. I thoroughly enjoy visiting them. But you could just do it at night in your pajamas at your house and learn all about dyslexia in that. And I think that that's been a huge movement here in the state of Texas to recognize that we needed to do more. And we needed to provide our teachers with more information, and we needed to provide that access for learning that information as well.
Thank you. Okay, so it's always a happy day for me when I get to go visit the team at Juvenile Justice. And it is really an honor to get to work shoulder to shoulder with Chief Jill Mata. So this question is for you. You ready? With such a high portion of justice-involved youth in showing signs of dyslexia and are entering the system at least one grade level, if not more, behind in reading, what do you see as an opportunity to disrupt further justice involvement for these students?
Well, the impacts that we're all hearing today, it all makes sense that a lot of these kids end up in the justice system, right? I mean, it just seems like we remember years ago, if a child was having trouble in school, they would act up in class, right? It's much easier to be a class clown or a class troublemaker than it is to be identified as having a learning disability or learning challenge. And so those kids make their way to us in a very high number. And as you heard from Representative Lujan, it is true that over like 50% of the kids come to us, they are significantly below reading level and matriculation level. It's really incredibly poignant that they come to us and have not yet been identified, because realize when they come to us, especially in our we have a secure correctional facility here in San Antonio that we run in the county for children who are placed by the courts, by the 3 juvenile courts. Those kids have been through a lot by the time they come to that placement, and the vast majority of them have not been identified. How do they get that far in the system? I mean, the big message is the systems are broken, right? They are across the board broken. And so we have really tried to look at it that way, as opposed to the children being broken, the systems are broken. And so what do? At the point that we get them, they're deep into the process. Most of the kids that are in our correctional facility, our treatment facility, it's a treatment facility, but it's secure. Those kids are usually 15, 16 years of age, average about 15. Lately, we've had a few younger kids that are coming in, but that is late in the process to be identifying a learning disability that could have really been completely turned around at an earlier stage. It's still important to do the work we're doing then, but it's challenging when they're at that point. So we've really appreciated collaboration that we have with Jasmine and with Celebrate Dyslexia and our educational partner, which is East Central High School. They have come to the table and worked really hard, all of us, and it hasn't been easy because there's a lot of bureaucracy right there with our system and their system to try to come up with ways to efficiently identify, test, and provide services, to secure services for kids, because they're only with us 6 to 8 to 9 months. And so we want to make sure that when they leave, that if we've not been able to do a lot of intervention, that they are set up for interventions when they leave. We also know school involvement, that is the biggest protective factor for children not getting into the justice system. That's how you hedge your bets. Kids even if they're not doing that well at school, going to school and being connected to school and to pro-social activities is the biggest protective factor, keeping them from getting into the justice system and assuring an optimistic future, right? And we all know that at every level in our core, we know that's true. So when kids are expelled from school, that is not a good thing. I mean, those children have a really hard time making their way back onto a positive path. And to make that point more, if a child is arrested, and that is the school to prison pipeline. When children aren't doing well in school, they end up getting expelled more often, removed from class more often, and arrested more often. And we used to think, way back in the day, that an arrest might be something that's a wake-up call. For children, it is not a wake-up call. It is not a wake-up call. It is a derailment from their future. And so some kids are going to have to go through that path because of the nature of the conduct or the criminal offense that might be alleged. But most of the kids do not need that. And so everything we can do on the front end to protect kids from getting involved in the system, it's going to pay off in spades. Like, amazingly, it pays off not only for those children and for those families, but it pays off for us as a community. If we want to be a healthy, happy, wholesome, optimistic community, a safe place where we want to live and raise our families, we have to do these things. We have to have these interventions. And the sooner we do them, the better it'll be.
So now this is the wild card question. I'm going to start with Mary, if you will. What partnerships across industries are needed to drive statewide impact? And maybe you can start by sharing one of the partnerships you helped facilitate between Education Service Center 4 and Celebrate Dyslexia.
We're really wanting to see this high quality training because it needs to be accessible to more people, and so that we can help more children. And so we formed this partnership with Celebrate Dyslexia so that they could also do training in this program. And I see it taking off already, which I love to see, but this needs to be happening everywhere. So
Thank you for sharing. Any other partnerships that come to mind?
we have been, well, before I retired, we were training in other states as well, because it's not just a Texas thing. And, you know, we've made great strides in Texas. We have, but we still have a long way to go. And I've been in this field for over 20 years, and I'm like, why haven't we moved the needle farther than we have? Because we were at a good starting place 20 years ago. And then I go into other states where we're not allowed to use the D word. And it's just shocking to me that we just have so far to go. So in terms of partnerships, juvenile justice, there needs to be more help for these kids. And I know I was trying to work with one group to help kids, and there are a lot of roadblocks to helping kids who are already in the system, but we need to help them before they get into the system. I've also I ran an adult literacy program for several years and worked with a lot of people who had been in the system, who were pretty close to getting into the system. And all of them, it was an issue with, you know, we back people into a corner. What are they supposed to do? We don't teach them how to read. My students said they were told through school, we just need to get you through school, which is so short-sighted, because then what happens? We get them through school, and then what? They need to get a job. They need to support their families. And it doesn't always go the way it should, and then this is what happens. So the medical model, my gosh, if we could get these kids identified early, we could prevent so much of this. Partnering with the universities so that the teachers are equipped when they go out in the world. Because we have so many teachers who say, I wanted to help my kids, I didn't know how. And as they're going through training to become a dyslexia interventionist, they're crying about the children that they failed 5 years ago, 7 years ago, if only I'd known. And, you know, we always say you can only go forward. And, you know, we know better, we do better. I could go on and on with partnerships.
Yeah, I just quickly, you know, a lot of this is very context specific. You know, in higher education, the traditional reward structure has been, you know, really rewarding faculty who publish, right, and get grants. But I'm seeing that beginning to evolve, where we're actually rewarding faculty for engaging in the public space, where their work actually becomes translational, right? It actually leads to benefits society. And we have, you know, several of my team members are here. One would be the dual language lab schools would be one example of that, where we are partnering with school districts and paying close attention to the holistic development of children. But it, you know, and I'm seeing that in higher ed. I think that's a very, very good development in sort of altering that reward structure to make sure that, you know, we recognize that as public scholarship in a way. I see Sharon Nichols, who's the director of the Urban Education Institute, who's here as well. Her kind of work, yes, it's very scholarly in nature, but it's the kind of work that can lead to, you know, more promising outcomes for our most vulnerable communities. So I think if that changes, where we actually affirm the work that has a very applied nature to it, I think that's a great change, and that can, I think, lead to further partnerships.
I'm gonna piggyback on what you said and send that toward the publishing world also, right? So we have to have good curriculums in classrooms in order to be able to teach the students what they need to know. So one of the things the state of Texas has done is made some of them illegal thank goodness. And so now we're able to move along and make sure that the curriculum that's available to the teachers in the classroom meet the needs of the students and what they need to know in order to learn how to read fluently and to resolve some of the damage that was done from having poor curriculum in the systems. And so one of the partnerships that Celebrate Dyslexia has is with Just Right Readers, where the students have decodables that'll go home that are directly aligned to what they need. So that partnership of home and family, the home along with the school and what the students are learning at school, they can practice at home. And so that's one of the areas of partnership. Another area is with the Texas Workforce Commission. By moving students off of a 504 and placing them onto an IEP, by aligning it and placing those additional laws and that additional coverage for students, students are now, they go through a transition process. And so the state of Texas, just in the last few years, is providing testing through the Texas Workforce Commission. There's actually funding that's set aside to identify learning disabilities for students who are moving into the workforce as well. If they haven't been identified with dyslexia, there is funding there in the Texas Workforce Commission to have them tested as an adult. But that is hugely helpful for our students who are graduating from high school with any identified learning disability to help them become contributing citizens of our community, of our state, and of our nation.
Yeah, specifically for juvenile justice involved children, the partnerships that come to mind so much for me are if businesses can make opportunities for these kids, because a lot of times people are, to be quite frank, are afraid of our kids. And I will say that they're all our kids. They're all our kids. They act just like all the other kids. And so really, if we can find places for our kids that are leaving the system to be able to get that real world experience working in organizations. We have some really good entities out there that will take 1 or 2 children in as interns and help really get them ready for the workforce. And the kids really appreciate and step up to the challenge of these opportunities because they really feel valued in those settings. And so that, and also one-on-one mentorship. It's one of the most powerful things you can do for a child who's in juvenile justice is they can have a pro-social relationship, positive relationship, engaged in a pro-social activity. It has a huge impact on their success in reentry and really helps build optimism and keep them moving in the right direction. And so those are some partnerships that we have, but we really need more of them.
Thank you, all of you, for being here and sharing part of your story with the intersection with Celebrate Dyslexia and the work that you do and the work that we will continue to do to change the groundwater of this conversation, not just for our community, but have it be replicable in other communities. And I just cannot thank you each enough for saying yes and being a part of the Celebrate Dyslexia story. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. So I'm going to go off script a little bit, which can be dangerous sometimes, but I really do have the privilege in my position to crawl into the trench with a lot of people. And I get to hear a lot of stories. And believe it or not, these stories all have the same tempo. They have the same crescendos. They have the same holds. It's just different names of students and different dining room tables. And so I don't take that position lightly. It's a sacred space. And I'm very grateful to be in that space. In a way, it provides healing for me and the experience that I've had with my own children. So I get a phone call from the amazing Tinsley Smith. And we had an opportunity to visit. And I was visiting with her not too long ago, and I said, I was actually trying to convince her to be on our board. And she is very busy, as all of you know. And I had told her about this event, and she automatically said, let Chad and I be the chairs. And boy, I had no idea what exactly that meant, but what a gift. Thank you. Thank you for crawling into my trench with me and helping propel this mission forward and really advocating for it and lifting it up in the community. So now I'll go back to the script. Tinsley and Chad Smith are not only dedicated community leaders and proud parents, they are champions of children. At a time when students with dyslexia have too often been misunderstood or overlooked, Tinsley and Chad have chosen to celebrate these kids rather than shame them. Their commitment to lifting up every child's strengths and potential is what makes evenings like this possible. It really is what makes evenings like this possible. As tonight's event chairs, they embody the heart of this mission and remind us all why this work matters so deeply. Please join me in honoring Tinsley and Chad.
As Jasmine was saying, this to her is a dining room table, but what I have to say is I think Chad would agree, this is like a big hug, this room full of people. So thank y'all all for being here. Thank you, Jasmine. You know what you mean to us. But Chad and I are honestly so grateful to be here tonight. The information that was shared, we've learned more than we realized. It's just been amazing, educational, inspiring. Thank you all. We're not here just to share our personal journey, but to stand in support of all children who are facing learning differences and champion the incredible work that Celebrate Dyslexia is doing. We are blessed with two amazing kids. They were on the screen. Bo, who's 11, and Mimi, who's 9. Our journey began with dyslexia with Bo. When he was in kindergarten, his teachers started to express concern about his speech and his ability to sound out phonograms. We sought out reading help, speech therapy on our own. We just kind of thought it was right in the middle of COVID. We were like, teachers are teaching like this. It's just not working. Like, it's going to be fine. And we were fortunate to have found a wonderful reading teacher, Miss Harrington. She will forever be a blessing to us, who worked with Bo for a couple of years, just doing reading. One summer after a session, she pulled me aside. I'll never forget. She said, Bo, could you go outside and play for a second? I just want to talk to your mom. She said, something more is going on with him. He's too smart to not be able to read and not to be able to read at a reading level. And when she said that to me, it was a wave of emotions. And then when I went home and repeated it to Chad, it was a wave of emotions, just so many things. And so she recommended that we go and speak to a psychologist and have him tested. And so, so unbelievably grateful for her stepping up and saying that to us. After Bo was tested with this, or after he was tested, he was diagnosed with dyslexia, and then that's when our journey really began. Around that same time as when I met Jasmine, we met Jasmine. She not only introduced us to the mission of Celebrate Dyslexia, but she also gave us the space to be emotional, ask questions, share concerns, and most importantly, she just listened. And it was a turning point for sure. So then we kind of began navigating Bo's path. What are we going to do next? And somebody mentioned it earlier, but Jasmine said to us that dyslexia is often hereditary. And I remember us talking about that, and Chad and I haven't experienced it ourselves, so this was kind of surprising to us, but really helpful to know because his sister, Mimi, was just a grade behind him, and she was starting at a new school, St. Luke's. And, we thought, oh gosh, okay, we're starting all of this with her and didn't know it was hereditary potentially. And after her first grade year, sure enough, her teacher came to us and had a similar conversation. We tested her and she was also diagnosed. The journey with our kids have had its ups and downs. Some days are harder than others. After a long school day, even the thought of tackling reading homework can feel like climbing a mountain. It's emotionally taxing for them and for us. I'm gonna let you take over. Especially because it just happened last night. We had an emotional breakdown with one of our kids.
We are in the trenches, and it's incredibly hard to not understand how they learn, how they function. We know they're super smart. It's not a question, but it still blows my mind of how they work through reading. And for us, we kind of stand up and deal with it. And most importantly for Tinsley and I think was to say, this is just so hard for us. How do we make it easier for the next person to come along? Because it is the cycle of it is crazy for everybody to have to do this every year. We were bringing in a private tutor in the middle of the day to work with her at school because school wasn't dealing with it, and there was 20 other families that were doing it, and that's just nuts. And so we worked with Jasmine, we worked with the head of the school, and we said, how do we raise our hand and say, hey, we're an example, but this is it's life, right? How do we deal with it, and how do we make a change? And I know it won't go fast or quickly, and it takes a lot of funding and the right people to stand up, but we're willing to raise our hand and share our story and try to help for the kids that are coming behind.
What we just want to say is that we truly believe our children bring something special to the classroom. Perspective, perseverance, and grit. I'll never forget Mimi being described early on as having a lot of grit. And at first I kind of thought that's kind of weird for a 7-year-old girl. But now I fully understand. But in their short lives, they've had to work harder than most. They just have. But that effort creates a really powerful ripple effect amongst their peers. And it's that kind of diversity in a classroom that really enriches the environment. And I think for Chad and I, that's the point. That's the point that we really want to make. Like, kids who have learning challenges bring something so special to a classroom, and we need to embrace it, and we need to be there for those kids. And so all the things you all talked about tonight really resonated with us. So thank you all for letting us share our story. But we would be remiss if we did not. First of all, thank you. We have so many friends in the room who are sponsors, and we cannot thank you enough. Thank you for giving us this big warm hug tonight. We really appreciate it. All that being said, you heard there's a lot more work to do. So please think about people who would be interested in funding this work and supporting Celebrate Dyslexia. We did a really great job tonight by raising $35,000 for Celebrate Dyslexia. But we encourage you to get involved, whether it's through volunteering, spending time with Jasmine, making introductions, or if it is through fundraising. We would truly appreciate it, and we will continue to be fierce advocates no matter what, not just for our kids, but for all kids who face these learning challenges. So thank you all very much for having us and letting us be a part of this very special event. And Jasmine, all hearts and hugs to you.
Just to show you how grateful we are for you taking this on and sharing your story, we decided that we would like to offer a scholarship in your name for an academic language therapist who will start with us in the summer. So, I'm just so incredibly grateful. Thank you for this holiday before the holidays actually started and joining us tonight, allowing us not just to talk about the work that we have been doing, but the work that's still ahead. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for moving this forward and joining our coalition. The one last thing I want to do before I let you go is when this all began in 2019, it really was just a one-woman show with an incredible husband who kept telling me to keep going. Now, I'm very happy to say that we are a team. So if you work for Celebrate Dyslexia or Celebrate Dyslexia Schools, can you please stand up? I wish you all very safe travels home, and I look forward to continued collaboration with you all. Thank you so much.